Hello, everyone. Thank you so much. Sorry for the delay. Running into a few technical issues, and this is the second day. I'm back live here with Will Johnson's show. We are going to go directly to the hearing right now with Pete Hegseth on Capitol Hill. So if we can go ahead and bring that over, we're going to go directly to that. And here it is.
I'm doing this job for them, for all of them.
Thank you, Mr. Hegseth. Senator Warren.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Mr. Hegseth, thank you. Thank you for your service. So if you're confirmed as Secretary of Defense, you will oversee our military, including about 250,000 women who currently serve on active duty in the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, the Space Forces, and the Marines. And I have serious concerns that your behavior toward women disqualifies you from serving in this role. Now, I've been trying to get answers from you for quite some time on this. You haven't wanted to meet or to answer any of my questions, so we'll just have to do it here and dive in. I want to pick up on some of the questions asked by Senators Shaheen and Gillibrand and Hirono, and I just want to make sure we have a list of some of the facts that I think are undisputed. I'm not going to talk about anonymous sources. I'm just going to quote you directly. We've got the video. We've got it in print. So going back to January 2013, you told a Fox News interviewer that women in the military simply couldn't measure up to men in the military, saying that allowing women to serve in combat roles would force the military to lower the bar. You picked up on that same theme in 2015, making remarks on Fox News, referring to women in combat as, quote, it would erode standards. June 2024, you said on Ben Shapiro's podcast, quote, women shouldn't be in combat at all. And then, of course, we've talked about it in 2024. You published a book, and you say on page 26 of your book, we need moms, but not in the military, especially in combat units. Page 48 of your book, you claim that women should not be in combat roles, because men are distracted by women. And then 10 weeks ago, you appeared on the Sean Ryan show and said, I'm straight up just saying we should not have women in combat roles. Now, I presume you recall making all these statements?
Senator, I'm not familiar with the article you're pointing to in 2013, but it underscores my argument completely, because in that 2013 argument, I was talking about standards. So standards are what it's always been about,
Let's not
Senator.
have this same fight
Always
again.
been about Senate
I've quoted
standards.
you directly. We've got the video. We're happy to show it. But I want to be clear here. For 12 years, you were quite open about your views, and your views were consistently the same. Women are inferior soldiers, sailors, Marines, airmen, and guardians. And in case anyone missed the point, and these are your words from 10 weeks ago, women absolutely straight up should not be permitted to serve in combat. And I notice on each of these quotes, those are said without qualification. It's not by how much you can lift or how fast you can run. They don't belong in combat, period, or your words, straight up. And then on November 9th, 2024, just 32 days after your last public comment saying that women absolutely should not be in combat, you declared that, quote, some of our greatest warriors are women, and you support having them serve in combat. Now, that is a very, very big about face in a very, very short period of time. So help me understand, Mr. Hegseth, what extraordinary event happened in that 32-day period that made you change the core values you had expressed for the preceding 12 years?
Senator, again, I very much appreciate you bringing up my comments from 2013, because for me, this issue has always been about standards. And unfortunately, because of some of the people that have been in political power for the last 4 years, priorities other than standards, lethality, and meritocracy have driven decision-making.
I'm quoting you from the podcast. Women shouldn't be in combat at all. Where is the reference to standards that they should be there if they can carry, if they can run? I don't see that at all, Mr. Hegseth. What I see is that there's a 32-day period in which you suddenly have another description about your views of women in the military. And I just want to know, what changed in the 32 days that the song you sang is not the song you come in here today to sing?
Senator, the concerns I have and the concerns that many have had, especially in ground combat units, is that in pursuit of certain percentages or quotas, standards have been changed. And that makes the combat more difficult for everybody involved. Let me make a suggestion about what happened in that 32 days. You got a nomination from President Trump. Now, I've heard of deathbed conversions, but this is the first time I've heard of a nomination conversion. And I hope you understand that many women serving in the military right now might think that if you can convert so rapidly your long-held and aggressively pursued views in just 32 days, that 32 days after you get confirmed, maybe you'll just reverse those views and go back to the old guy who said straight up, women do not belong in combat. Now, Mr. Hegseth, you have written that after they retire, generals should be banned from working for the defense industry for 10 years. You and I agree on the corrosive effects of the revolving door between the Pentagon and defense contractors. It's something I would have liked to talk with you about if you'd come and been willing to visit with me. But the question I have for you on this is, will you put your money where your mouth is and agree that when you leave this job, you will not work for the defense industry for 10 years? Senator, it's not even a question I've thought about, because it's not one. Think about it right now. It's not one. My motivation for this job. I understand that. I just need a yes or no here. Time is short. I just need a yes or no. I would consult with the president about what the policy should be at the Defense Department. In other words, you're quite sure that every general who serves should not go directly into the defense industry for 10 years. You're not willing to make that same pledge? I'm not a general, Senator. You'll be the one, let us just be clear, in charge of the generals. So you're saying sauce for the goose, but certainly not sauce for the gander? I would want to see what the policy of the president is. I'll bet you would.
Thank you, Senator Warren. Senator Tuberville.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for your hard work.
Okay, I want to address this a little bit. Yeah, just leave that playing. Good. Every single, well, as far as I've seen, every single Democrat that has been a female, they've been bringing up his personal life, right? And they're bringing up the fact that Pete Hegseth has said that women should not be in combat. Well, most of the women that I've talked to, actually, I haven't heard a single woman, and I'm pretty sure Elizabeth Warren and the Democrats on Capitol Hill talking about putting women in combat positions, they would not do it themselves either. Women, look, if we're gonna stick to reality, and that's the whole thing about Will Johnson, sticking with reality, there's a difference between men and women. Now, whatever that may be, you get to decide on that. I'm not on here to tell you how you should believe in what a woman is or what a woman is not. But to be clear, putting women on the front line of a battle, every single one that I've talked to, they've said no to that. And I tend to agree with it. And he's not saying this because he believes that women are not capable of doing X, Y, Z. He's not saying that at all. See, as men, it is our duty to put ourselves in harm's way and not women and children. Why do you think when they're like on a boat, let me just give you an example here. Why do you think when people are on a boat and a big ship, like the Titanic or something, What do they always say if the ship is about to go down? What's the first thing they say?
Women and children first.
Women and children first. They never say just children and then men and then women. They never say that. Women and children first. Why do they say that? Why do they say that? Because it's the men trying to hold the boat up, trying to do everything and make sure that the women, the children first, and then the women, because the women can bore more children. Men cannot. That's one of the reasons. And as men, as a biological man, I will always put women and children first.
And you know what, Will? I do believe, Pete talked about, which Elizabeth Warren doesn't allow him to clarify his statements and women being in the military, is they should meet the same standards. I do believe that. I do believe that if we are to allow women to be in the military, they should meet the very same standards that the men meet. And that's because there's reasons why they do that. Just like all the gear that you're carrying, men have even said, it's a lot for me. So if it's a lot for them, it's going to be a lot for a woman. And if there's any lagging with anybody, it can cause an issue. So if they're to allow them, let them meet the same standards. We shouldn't lower our standards for anybody. And women that are wanting to be in the military, they should be happy to meet those standards. If they want to be equal, I would be insulted with any job, let's say being a CEO of a company, if they say, well, we're going to let you be there, but we're going to lower the standard for you. That's insulting.
Well,
right?
According to the Democrats, they're saying that they're not lowering the standard.
I understand there's a physicality to it. I understand that women are built different. But like I said, in military, that is...
but according to the Democrats, that's not true. According to the Democrats, there is no difference.
Well, there is a difference.
I mean, you're talking about reality. I'm talking about what the Democrats are saying. What they're saying, there is no difference. There is no difference.
I don't know if they are acknowledging that there's no difference. I think that they think that women have other things that men don't have, that they're bringing something else to it that men don't, don't bring to it.
One thing, and I forget which senator it was, they were saying that women and men going into a combat situation, let's say in the Middle East somewhere, where the women can't really talk to men. Right, you're not supposed to talk to men unless you can talk to your husband, but if it's not your husband, you can't talk to him.
Right,
and they're saying women in those scenarios would be a good reason to bring them in to have a conversation with the women that are there. But look.
But then you have the opposite problem that the men won't listen to the women.
Well, that's why they're saying to have both men and women there at the same time. Right.
And you know what? We already know what's happening in this hearing. If anybody else is watching it or been watching it, it's absolutely irritating. These Democrats are coming out to they don't want to confirm Pete Hegseth. That is the mindset going into the hearing. They're going to bash his character as much as possible. Schumer already gave the go ahead. He gave him the green light on bashing Pete Hegseth and make him, how would you say it? Make his character questionable.
Yeah, they're bringing up personal stuff that have nothing to do with the job.
Right, they're really not talking about his tenure with the vets, his military tenure. They're not talking about any of that. They're talking about literally the agenda items that the Democrat lost in the election. They still don't get it. They lost.
Yeah, let's go back to the hearing. Yep, let's go back to the hearing.
Why would you fight for a country that you don't love? That's what I keep hearing from a lot of our college kids that they're getting from these woke universities that they go to. Now, and I worked at a lot of them. That is one of the excuses I get from our kids. We've got to break that. Another one, according to the Pentagon, between 2001 and 2024, the number of civilian employees in the Office of the Secretary of Defense has nearly doubled from 1,500 to 3,000. Civilians on Joint Chiefs has increased from 191 to almost 1,000. Our military end strength goes down. Our staff numbers are exploding. What are you going to do about that?
Senator, we're going to address that. We won World War II with 7 4-star generals. Today we have 44 4-star generals. There's an inverse relationship between the size of staffs, and victory on the battlefield. We don't need more bureaucracy at the top. We need more warfighters empowered at the bottom. So it's going to be my job working with those that we hire and those inside the administration to identify those places where fat can be cut so it can go toward lethality.
Thank you, Senator Tuberville. Senator Peters.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Hegseth, welcome to this committee.
Thank you.
You know, we have far too much partisanship in our country right now. I think it's eating away at the fabric of what has always made this country great, about bringing people together from all sorts of backgrounds, all sorts of experiences. And we know that in our motto, together as one, we are strong. And so we in this committee, and certainly I speak for myself, but I think I speak for many of my colleagues, want to take partisanship out of this proceeding as much as we can. I'm not naive. It's out there. I get it. But we've got to try to take that out. And I want you to know that as a member of this committee, I have voted in a bipartisan way for secretaries of defense. I voted for 2 secretaries of defense when Donald Trump was previously president. We had those 2. We had, I think, 5 total secretaries of defense during that 4-year period. So we want to keep that in mind as to what we might see in this coming administration. But I voted, and we voted by a big margin for those folks as well. But part of that was the process and having an opportunity to get to know the person and understand their qualifications and understand the standards. You know, I made repeated requests to meet with you prior to this meeting. I know many of my other colleagues also wanted to meet with you. I did that with the other nominees that I was happy to vote for. I thought they were highly qualified individuals and true professionals. And yet I could never get a meeting with you. Was there a reason you were afraid to have one-on-one meetings with some of my colleagues before the hearing?
Senator, I know there was a great deal of outreach to multiple offices. Schedules get full. There's a lot going on.
I was ready.
And I welcome the opportunity, pending my schedule, to have an opportunity to sit down.
I was ready. It would have been so much better to have that opportunity to talk beforehand. I think that's a big mistake, and it doesn't set us on a good course when you refuse to meet with people and have a professional conversation about the huge challenges that we face at the Department of Defense. My colleagues, the folks who introduced you and others, the chairman has mentioned about the management of the DoD as a concern, cost overruns, delays on weapon systems. We need strong management at the Department of Defense, first and foremost. We've got to have someone who's going to grab the reins and give the taxpayers value for having the most lethal fighting force in the world that defends freedoms, but we've got to do it in an efficient way. I've heard about the jobs you've had in the past. Let's just talk about qualifications. I know you had 2 previous positions. How many people reported to you in those positions?
Senator, at Vets for Freedom, we were a small upstart. Our focus was
just the number,
working
please.
on Capitol Hill, going back to the battlefield,
just the number,
warfighters.
Just the number, please.
We probably had 8 to 10 full-time staff and lots of volunteers.
So you had 8. Has there been any other? We've heard about the 2, and certainly there's been a lot of talk about the mismanagement, et cetera, et cetera. I'm just curious. I won't go into that. Just curious. So you had 8 there. What's the largest number of people you've ever supervised or had in an organization in your career?
Not 3 million. Senator.
No, I don't expect that. Very few people have ever had that experience. But how many? It's a straight up question.
I think we had over 100 full-time staff at Concerned Vets for America, roughly, with thousands of volunteers.
So 100 people.
I was also a headquarters company commander, which would have been
that's fine.
A couple of hundred. Nothing remotely near the size of the Defense Department, right. I would acknowledge that.
Actually, Senator. Not remotely near even a medium-sized company in America, let alone a big company in America, especially a major corporation. And we're hiring you to be the CEO of one of the most complex, largest organizations in the world. We're the board of directors here. I don't know of any corporate board of directors that would hire a CEO for a major company if they came and said, you know, I supervised 100 people before. They'd ask you, well, what kind of experiences you had? We need innovation. Can you give me an experience or your actual experience of driving innovation in an organization? Give me an example of where you have done that.
Oh, my goodness, Senator, absolutely. At Concerned Veterans for America, we created the Fixing Veterans Healthcare Task Force, a bipartisan task force that never been done before, to create policy, to drive policy change on Capitol Hill that organizations fought ferociously against. We got the VA Accountability Act passed and the Mission Act passed in a way that a nonprofit of our size, veterans organization, has never done. And that's testified in all the letters that we put forward to the committee, which are on the record.
I have limited time. Thank you for that. Give me an example of where you've driven down cost. I've heard the examples that Senator Blumenthal gave. The cost was a real problem for you in your 50-person organization that you actually raised a lot less than what you actually spent. Did you drive costs down? If in a 50-person organization, let me tell you, we've got to drive costs down dramatically in an organization of 3 million people and hundreds of billions of dollars. You don't have that experience that you can talk about. To me, this is or acquisition reform. Acquisition reform, you bring that up. Have you had experience in acquisition reform?
I've written about and studied on acquisition reform.
Have you actually done it?
Because what we need in the hands of our warfighters better change, because we're not doing it well right now.
It better. And we need people who have experience actually doing that. You know, you talk about standards. Again, I'm going to go back to CEO of the most complex organization in the world. I don't think there's a board of directors in America that would hire you as a CEO with the kind of experience you have on your resume. You talk about standards. You talk about raising or lower, that we have a problem of standards in the DOD, and we have to raise standards for the men and women who serve. Do you think that the way to raise the minimum standards of the people who serve us is to lower the standards for the Secretary of Defense, that we have someone who has never managed an organization more than 100 people is going to come in and manage this incredibly important organization and do it with a professionalism and has no experience that they can tell us that they have actually done that? I have real problems with that. This is not about other issues that are brought up. They're all very important. I'm just about trying to get things done, managing efficiently, and having the best people who have demonstrated that in a large organization. And I'm sorry, but I don't see that in your background. There are a lot of other things you can do very well. You're a capable person, but you have not convinced me that you're able to take on this tremendous responsibility with a complex organization and having little or no significant management experience.
Senator, I'm grateful to be hired by one of the most successful CEOs in American history, should I be confirmed.
Mr. Hegseth, it seems to me that you've supervised far more people than the average United States senator supervises typically. And
thank you.
Except for former governors, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Mullin, I understand you are yielding back your time and do not wish to ask questions. I was misinformed. Senator Mullin,
okay.
That's right.
Caught me totally off guard there. I'd like to submit for the record signatures by 32 members of the House of Representatives who are veterans. The signatures call on the Senate to honor the constitutional duty of advising and consent by conducting a fair, thorough confirmation process that evaluates his nomination solely on the substance and merits. His distinguished military service, academic credentials, and a bold vision for revitalizing the national defense. I ask unanimous consent to enter into the record.
Without objection.
You know, there's a lot of talk going about talking about qualifications and then about us hiring him if we are the board. But there's a lot of senators here I wouldn't have on my board because there is no qualifications except your age, and you got to be living in the state and you're a citizen of the United States to be a senator. Other than the fact we got to convince a lot of people to vote for us. And then when we start talking about qualifications for if you're qualified for it, could the chairman tell me what the qualifications are for the Secretary of Defense? Mr. Chairman, could you tell me what the qualifications are for the Secretary of Defense?
I'd be happy
I'll read
for
it.
you to do that. Yeah.
Let me read it for you because
I was getting some advice from my second in command.
Yeah, but I'm just making a point because there's a lot about qualifications, and I think it's so hypocritical of senators, especially on the other side of the aisle, be talking about his qualifications, not going to lead the Secretary or be the Secretary of Defense, and yet your qualifications aren't any better. You guys aren't any more qualified to be the senator than I'm qualified to be the senator, except we're lucky enough to be here. But let me read you what the qualifications of the Secretary of Defense is, because I Googled it, and went through a lot of different sites, and really it's hard to see. But in general, the U.S. Secretary of Defense position is filled by a civilian. That's it. If you have served in the U.S. Army Forces and have been in the service for, you have to be retired for at least 7 years, and Congress can weigh that. And then there's questions that the senator from Massachusetts brought up about serving on a board inside the military industry, and yet your own secretary that you all voted for, Secretary of Austin, we had to vote on a waiver because he stepped off the board of Raytheon. But I guess that's okay because that's a Democrat Secretary of Defense. But you so quickly forget about that. And then Senator Kaine, or I guess I better use the senator from Virginia, starts bringing up the fact that what if you showed up drunk to your job? How many senators have showed up drunk to vote at night? Have any of you guys asked them to step down and resign from their job? And don't tell me you haven't seen it, because I know you have. And then how many senators do you know have got a divorce before cheating on their wives? Did you ask them to step down? No. But it's for show. You guys make sure you make a big show and point out the hypocrisy because the man's made a mistake. And you want to sit there and say that he's not qualified? Give me a joke. I mean, it is so ridiculous that you guys hold yourself as this higher standard and you forget you got a big plank in your eye. We've all made mistakes. I've made mistakes. And Jennifer, thank you for loving him through that mistake. Because the only reason why I'm here and not in prison is because my wife loved me too. I have changed, but I'm not perfect. But I found somebody that thought I was perfect. And for whatever reason, you love Pete, and I don't know why. But just like our Lord and Savior forgave me, my wife's had to forgive me more than once too, and I'm sure you've had to forgive him too. And so thank you. So before I go down this rabbit hole again, tell me something about your wife that you love.
She's the smartest, most capable, loving, humble, honest person I've ever met. In addition to being incredibly beautiful. Don't forget about your kids. I'm supposed to talk about my kids?
No, well, she's also the mother.
Oh, an amazing mother.
Yes.
Of our blended family of 7 kids.
Brother, I'm pulling you along. I'm trying to help you here. You know, do you believe that you're going to be running the Secretary or the Department of Defense by yourself?
Senator, absolutely not. Just as President Trump is assembling his cabinet, I look forward and already am in the process of building one of the best possible teams you can imagine, with decades and decades of experience outside of the Pentagon, driving innovation and excellence, and also inside the building, knowing how to make it happen. Yes, sir.
So, in your organizations that you did have the privilege of running, did you have a board that you...
In both organizations, we had a board, yes.
Okay, and what did you do with that board? What kind of decisions did you make with them?
Those boards provided oversight and insight into decision-making.
They all have special, unique sets that maybe filled gaps that you're not the expertise in?
Yes, sir.
So do you believe you're capable of surrounding yourself with capable individuals that you're going to be able to run those same ideas by, and surround yourself with people that are smarter and better equipped in maybe areas that you don't necessarily carry those expertise with?
Senator, the only reason I've had success in life, to include my wonderful wife, is because of people more capable around me and having the self-confidence to empower them and say, hey, run with the ball, run with the football, take it down the field. We'll do this together. I don't care who gets the credit. And in this case, that's how the Pentagon will be run.
Let's end with this, Mr. Chairman, about the qualifications. You got a man who has literally put his butt on the line. He served 20 years in the service, multiple deployments, has heard the bullets crack over the top of his head, has been willing to go into combat, been willing to see friends die for this country, and he's willing to still put himself through this. His wife is willing to still stand beside him, knowing he wasn't perfect, knowing that all this was going to be brought up, and he's still willing to serve the country. What other qualifications does he need? That I yield back.
Thank you, Senator Mullin. Senator Duckworth. And again, we really are going to strictly enforce the rule about no demonstrations or noise. The distinguished ranking member.
Just a point of personal privilege to make a correction. The reason that General Austin required a waiver was not because of his participation in a corporate enterprise. It was because he did not have 7 years of interruption between his service and his appointment. Second point is that if any of us were appointed as Secretary of Defense, we would be subject to the same types of questions. And the case in point is Senator John Tower was nominated for Secretary of Defense. It was discovered by his colleagues that his behavior was not commensurate with the responsibilities despite his service, and he was voted down. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Duckworth, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And also, Secretary Mattis had to have this waiver as well. Mr. Hegseth, this hearing is about whether you are qualified to be Secretary of Defense. And one of the qualifications, to answer my colleague's question, is to actually win the votes of every member of this committee and to be confirmed by the United States Senate. And you need to convince us that you're worthy of that vote, because the people of the state of Illinois voted for me to be their senator so that I could cast that vote when it comes to picking who is going to be the next Secretary of Defense. This hearing now seems to be a hearing about whether or not women are qualified to serve in combat, and not about whether or not you are qualified to be Secretary of Defense. And let me just say that the American people need a SecDef who's ready to lead on day one. You are not that person. Our adversaries watch closely during times of transition, and any sense that the Department of Defense that keeps us safe is being steered by someone who's wholly unprepared for the job puts America at risk, and I am not willing to do that.
Oh, my goodness.
With that in mind, Mr. Hegseth, I want you to try to explain to the American people, this committee, who have to vote for you, and to our troops who are deployed around the world, why you are qualified to lead the Department of Defense. We already know that you've only led the largest, a 200-person organization. We already know that you so badly mangled a budget that after you left, they had to bring in a forensic accountant to figure out what went wrong. And that the largest budget you ever managed was about $18 billion. You know, that is about 51,560 times lower than the Department of Defense budget of $825 billion. $16 million is 51,568 times smaller than the defense budget. Please describe to me, Mr. Hegseth, you talk about DOD passing an audit. Please describe to me a time or an organization when that you led underwent an audit, because you say you're going to hire smarter people than you to run this audit. I'm not asking you to be an accountant. I want you to be able to tell me what kind of guidance will be given to those employees, what will happen whether or not you pass that audit. Have you led an audit of any organization? Yes or no? I don't want a long answer. Yes or no? Have you led an audit of any organization of which you were in charge?
Senator, in both of the organizations I ran, we were always completely fiscally responsible.
Yes or no, did you lead an audit?
And the way
yes
my
or
leadership
no,
has
did you lead an audit?
stated,
yes or no? What are you afraid of? You can't answer this question. Yes or no, did you lead an audit?
He's answering the question.
Do you not know this answer?
Senator,
yes
every part of my leadership of these organizations has been misrepresented.
I will take that as a no. What were the findings? So there were no findings because you've never led an audit. What guidance did you give the auditors? None, because you've never led an audit. Nobody expects you to be an accountant, Mr. Hegseth. What we expect is for you to understand the complexity of this Pentagon budget process that is absolutely necessary to outfit our warfighters. Look, the Secretary of Defense is required to make quick decisions every single day that, well, with high-level information that's being provided for them. A Secretary of Defense has to have breadth and depth of knowledge. Right now, I am concerned that you have neither. Mr. Hegseth, what is the highest level of international negotiations that you have engaged in, that you have led in? Because the Secretary of Defense does lead international security negotiations. there are three main ones that the Secretary of Defense leads and signs. Can you name at least one of them?
Could you repeat the question, Senator?
Sure. What is the highest level of international security agreement that you have led? And can you name some that the Secretary of Defense would lead? There's three main ones. Do you know?
I have not been involved in international security arrangements because I have not been in government other than serving in the military. So my job has been to
no. The answer is no. Can you name one of the three main ones that the Secretary of Defense
talking about defense arrangements. I mean, NATO might be one that you're referring to.
Status of Forces Agreement would be one of them.
Status of Forces Agreement. I've been a part of teaching about Status of Forces Agreements.
But you don't remember to mention it? You're not qualified, Mr. Hegseth. You're not qualified. You talk about repairing our defense industrial complex. You're not qualified to that. You could do acquisition and cross-servicing agreements, which essentially are security agreements. You can't even mention that. You've done none of those. You talked about the Indo-Pacific a little bit, and I'm glad that you mentioned it. Can you name the importance of at least one of the nations in the ASEAN, and what type of agreement we have with at least one of those nations? And how many nations are in ASEAN, by the way?
I couldn't tell you the exact amount of nations in that, but I know we have allies.
You know
in
what?
South Korea,
I'm willing
Japan,
to bet that she didn't know the answer to that either until someone looked it up and told her.
Mr. Hegseth, none of those
100%. She didn't know the answer to that either.
Three countries that you've mentioned are in ASEAN. I suggest you do a little homework before you prepare for these types of negotiations. Listen, Mr. Hegseth, we ask our troops to go into harm's way all the time. We ask them to go into harm's way. And this behind me is a copy of the Soldier's Creed, a copy that usually hangs over my desk here in the Senate, and you should be familiar with it. It's the same copy that hung over my desk at Walter Reed every single day that I woke up and fought my way back because I wanted to go back and serve next to my buddies who'd saved my life. This same copy, these words are repeated over and over and over again. And let me read out two things to you, two sentences. I will always place the mission first, and I am disciplined, physically and mentally tough, trained and proficient in my warrior task. Mr. Hegseth, our troops follow these words every single day, and they man up and they pack their rucksacks and they go to war. And they deserve a leader who can lead them, not a leader who wants to lower the standards for himself or raising the standards for other people. And by the way, our troops already meet the standards. We ask troops to man that ship, fight that fire, fly that helicopter until their very last breath. And they do that every single day. They cannot be led by someone who's not competent to do the job. How can we ask these warriors to train and perform the absolute highest standards when you are asking us to lower the standards to make you the Secretary of Defense simply because you are buddies with our president-elect? And by the way, he has filed for bankruptcy 6 times. I'm not quite sure he's the kind of CEO you want to refer to as a successful businessman. Let me make it clear. You can't seem to grasp that there is no U.S. military as we know it without the incredible women that we serve. Women who've earned their place in their units.
Can you mute it real quick? Because she's going to go down the same line again about women being in the military. So let me just address this really quick about something else that she just said. And it's about the audit of the Defense Department. Why are they so against the audit of the Defense Department? It hasn't been there before. Why are they so against that? Is something happening at the Defense Department, money getting transferred through there that they don't want people to know about? Shouldn't they want to be on top of that? Shouldn't they want to address the issues about the audit, about the money being spent? Is it wasteful money? Are they spending it on, I remember this first time I ever heard of this. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it was Bush was in office. I can't remember exactly. But the Pentagon was charged, and it was like a ridiculous amount of number. And don't hold me to it. Don't quote me to it. I probably have to go look it up. And I just remember they were charging the Pentagon for these hammers that they received. And it wasn't that many of them, to my understanding, but they received hammers. And the hammer was like $55,000 a hammer. And they actually paid it out, $50,000 a hammer. That's the type of stuff that needs to be audited. You can't constantly keep pouring money into an organization where they're taking the money and you don't even know what they're doing with it, or they're spending money on hammers. They're like $55,000 a hammer. I can't remember the exact number, but I remember that was the first time I ever heard of that. It was a long time ago. I wasn't even in politics, wasn't even paying attention to all of this. But I heard that and it just blew my mind. I'm like, this is wasteful spending.
And let me just say, I mean, I bet all those people that are criticizing Hegseth, including that woman right there, voted for Biden. Biden never ran a company. He never even ran organization like Pete Hegseth did. And he actually was CEO of the entire country. They all voted for him. That's perfectly fine because they liked him, right? Had nothing to do really with qualifications of running anything because Biden never ran anything. These people are literally doing just like that one man said. They're holding him to a different standard that they hold no other Democrat to. Just because they don't like him, it's a Trump pick. They know that he wants to make real change for an organization that, quite frankly, needs real change. These Democrats really are starting off this non-peaceful transition today. This is non-peaceful.
Yeah, this is 100% non-peaceful.
They don't want the pick because it's Trump's pick.
Yeah, and I just looked it up, because I can remember about the hammer issue. I just looked it up, and this is actually on, I don't know if this is actually a government website. I don't think that it is, but it's saying that the hammers were reported to be $600 a hammer, which was not true. But you know how much the hammers were, according to this? They were $435 each. Is that still not excessive spending?
Of course it is. And
it's ridiculous. There should be an audit regardless.
And all of them constantly do this with the government. That's why a lot of them want to do business with the government. They can get away with murder. They can get away with overcharging. They can get away with no accountability.
Yeah, they can get away with it 100%. Okay, before we run out of time, let's go back to some more of this hearing.
That it's become politicized. And if confirmed, would you commit to working with my office to address the military recruiting crisis and ensuring the military is focused on warfighting?
Senator, absolutely. Number one, from day one, with a mandate from the commander-in-chief, who received that mandate when Americans spoke out loudly and said, we want peace through strength, we want America first foreign policy, and we don't want political ideology driving decisions inside our Defense Department. That was clear. It's an infection that the American people are acutely aware of, which the men and women in this room have lived firsthand. I've lived it firsthand. And that's why it will be a priority. And I truly believe, and I'm humbled by this, the response we've already seen from young men and women who've decided to join the military when they had said I wasn't going to. But seeing a commander-in-chief, Donald Trump, reassured them. Seeing the possibility, if confirmed, of a Secretary of Defense that would have their back reassured them. And so in the first couple of months after President Trump's election, we have already seen, the numbers are there, a recruiting surge in all the services that I would welcome the opportunity to continue. And it's humbling to think that families across this country would have confidence in us to deliver for their young men and women. There's no more important task.
Thank you for that. So shifting gears a bit, I want to hear some of your thoughts on the growing fighter aircraft capacity gap with China and what this means for a potential fight in the Indo-Pacific. So if confirmed, what policy recommendations will you make to the president on procurement and maintenance of 4th and 5th generation fighters while we continue to research and develop 6th generation and collaborative combat aircraft?
Senator, that's a very important conversation, one that I've been looking at a great deal. A lot of it, just to be clear, involves classifications and understanding precisely cost and capabilities, including capabilities of enemy systems, both not just 4th and 5th, but potential 6th generation, which we've already seen a prototype released from the Chinese. That's a dangerous development, considering at least the publicly understood condition of NGAD, which I look forward to the opportunity to looking underneath the hood on that. But ensuring 4th and 5th are capable and upgraded as necessary will be a part of our contingency. But when you look at what's happening in the Indo-Pacific, say operability, range is going to matter because it's such a large battle space. That will all factor in decisions that are made. And that's where I feel, frankly, a little bit liberated, is that I didn't work at Lockheed or any number of Pick a defense contractor. I didn't mean to point one out in particular. Pick any. I haven't. I don't have a special interest in any particular system or any particular company or any particular narrative. I want to know what works. I want to know what defeats our enemies, what keeps us safe, what deters them, what keeps our enemies up at night. Whatever that is, I want more of it, and I want to invest in it. And I know that's the view that President Trump has as well.
Thank you. You know, some have commented recently about the need to eliminate immediately a manned aircraft. So I'd say maybe one day, but that day's not now, and certainly not before 2027, especially in the Indo-Pacific. So if confirmed, will you commit to work with my office in this committee to ensure the proper mix of fighters, manned and unmanned?
I look forward to working with you on that, Senator, because unmanned will be a very important part of the way future wars are fought. Just the idea of survivability for a human being drives cost and time in ways that unmanned systems do not. But I look forward to that conversation, Senator.
Thank you, Senator Budd.
Okay.
I now
we are at
Senator
the end here, and I want to thank everyone for tuning in. Thank you so much for spending the time to watch some of this hearing with me. Just to let you know, I will be doing my show here, The Will Johnson Show, Monday through Friday at 11 a.m. Central. So please mark your phones, mark it on your phone, put a reminder on your phone. So then that way you create your own alert. Okay, Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. Central. And of course, that's 12 o'clock on the East Coast. So please mark it on your phone. Put it on your phone. Go ahead and create a reminder. Will Johnson at 11 Central, Monday through Friday. And you can find me on various places. Also, if you want to see my other show that I'm getting ready to do, and about an hour from now, I will be doing on LFA TV. And to find that, you can go to my website. Can we put that up on the screen really quick? My website, uniteamericafirst.com. If you go to uniteamericafirst.com, you can see the shows that I do throughout the day. Right there. Go to uniteamericafirst.com, or you can see it straight down there below right there. You see uaf.media straight down there below. You can type that in. It's a short URL for uniteamericafirst.com, but you can see the shows that I do throughout the day right there on the front page of my website. So at 1 o'clock Central, I will be doing my show LFA, and I will be showing more of this hearing. And, depending if it's still going on, I will show other information as well. So please do that. And also, let me tell you, I'm on a new platform called Pilled.net. If you go to pilled.net/welcome/Will Johnson, it explains everything on how to get set up for free. It's free for you. And I'm live on Rumble as well as X. So thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. And all of you on Facebook and YouTube for tuning in as well. Monday through Friday, right here, everyone, 11 a.m. Central. God bless you. See you at 1 on LFA TV. Come on over. Just go to uniteamericafirst.com and you'll get there. Come on over. You're not going to want to miss it. See you then. God bless.